nfstrike sent me a little more stuff, some more loot. This time it's those weird looking worker iron sights. I'm going to go over how I feel about them. It's not a true unboxing, I already opened them. Sorry guys, I'm a liar. So we got 3 here. We got these 2 rifle-y looking ones. I lost the nut thingy that goes in there, which is kind of a shame. So they have, this comes out, obviously, little bolt. Only the front little bit comes off of these, so they're not like, you'd have a hard time getting this on an X-Zeus because the rail on an X-Zeus is wider than a normal Picatinny. They have a very interesting and almost sci-fi sight picture, very angular, lots of things. The ring here, I think it's the aperture, has like all of these vertical and sidelines too, so like when you are sighting down it, you can line it up, you know, for vertical and horizontal and all of that. I mean, they flip, so they just lock down, and then there's this little button here that flips them up. They have the typical wind and elevation adjustments, which are handy when you're making mods because you may not attach a rail or something totally straight and you may need to adjust that. And there are those who think that sights are useless. I am not one of those people. I think the iron sights are absolutely useful if done right. One of the things that you see a lot of the time is when they have the day aperture that's very narrow. If they don't come with a bigger one, I always drill it out and make it bigger, because with nerf you need to see a little better to call your hits than just that. And frankly, just going through the motion of aiming it and putting it upright, you know, shouldering properly and sighting at all will get you more tags than just spraying and praying, although I am a fan of spraying and praying. And then it came with this last one, which is less useful to me. I might make something someday that will really utilize this. Again, flips up. It's sort of like a artillery aircraft rocket launcher sight, so the entire picture moves. So if you had that lined up with the front one, you know, you're closer, you put it lower. You want to shoot someone 1,000 yards, you put it up here, and then as you aim, you know, to get the right sight picture, you're aiming up like this a lot, and the further down it is, the straighter it is. That is one of the things that I have never understood with, if you're designing iron sights for nerf and you're making them, they should always have a very angled sight picture so that the front sight is always notably lower than the rear sight. In the case of, you know how I designed, like I'll pull out my SMG, I designed that this way on purpose. The rear sight is, you get a degree or 2 of angling up by default by aiming the top of the sight with the front sight, because it's designed to be that way, instead of like a railgun, which is like this, where you would have shorter sights in the rear. But, you know, 100 yards, you would get a straight shot, more or less, with very little drop, where with nerf you'll get 100 feet with plenty of drop. And so you want a lot of angling so that you, by default, by aiming, instead of aiming the whole thing with it like this, you want to aim it like this. These sights actually are all right this way. The front sight here is pretty high, and so I probably won't use it. I would rather use a built-in front sight or just sight with the front of the blaster than that. So I'm going to just stick the rear sight on here. The first thing I noticed, these are like a polymer plastic. They're really tight. I don't need the clamp at all to get this on here. And if you have a less than perfect rail like the X-Zeus or on that particular copy of my SMG, I won't even be able to get this on, to be honest. These are really tall sights, so if you use just the rear one and then a front one like this, so there's a strong angle here. To get the sight picture, this is a pretty high drop. You can see by looking at it, I'll pull out my grabber claw, the angle here is very steep. You know, you'll get a good picture, but you'll get the angle up that you want for further range. Kind of like them. I'm kind of not in love with them. I don't love the aesthetics on the base, but I do like the sight picture's pretty cool. Very sci-fi. If I built, like, say, if you had a vector or something, these would be pretty cool. If you want some iron sights that I think are, I mean, they're from Worker, so they're kind of designed for this, although I don't think that the companies always take into consideration some of the factors that they maybe ought to. Pick them up. They're pretty cool. I'll include a link to them from nfstrike. They're pretty neat. I am a big fan of iron sights. Let me pull up some of, just a small part of my collection here. This is some of my collection of iron sights, and I'm happy to have 3 new members. You know, if you like iron sights, if you're a fan of them like I am, then I'd say definitely pick them up. If there are some concerns in some ways that I have, but generally I think you'll find that these would be pretty good, especially for nerf. Especially these 2 rear sights can be adjusted in such a way that they will actually be useful. I don't like the front sight. I never like the flip up front sights. They're too tall for nerf. Not anything against Worker. It's a high quality part, like, clearly I feel, but it's just not like terribly useful. As a moderator of our group and as a pretty consistent player, those are concerns that I have, and so, you know, this is an honest review about that. nfstrike did send them to me. They were free. I did not pay. I don't know if I would pay for them, as I have clearly an abundance of iron sights, but if I was looking for something specific for, like, say, a sci-fi looking blaster, like a Vector-esque rifle or something, I probably would pick up a set of these for that. They're like $15 or so, I think, and so they're not the cheapest, but very far from the most expensive. And if you wanted something very, very cool for a very particular kind of thing, then pick them up. I'd say go for it. Anyway, thanks for watching.